Rightio, so I've racked up just over 2,000 kilometres on the bike, and now I will give a review of the motor. But before I get to the motor, I just want to talk about a couple of the issues I had with this bike. And we'll start with the actual ignition key. Now I had a problem. As you can see here, I've attached a key ring to it, and the reason why I have is because I actually dropped the key down here. I don't know if you can see it down there, but down there there's Suzuki have created like a plastic pocket, and with the key falls down there, it is impossible to retrieve. Now luckily, when I did it, I was still about 5 kilometres where I live, so I was able to just walk home and get the spare key. But it is an absolute pain in the arse, and I wish Suzuki would fix that problem. It's definitely a design fault. But like I said, now I carry a spare key on me all the time, and I keep the tag on just in case. It does make it easier to retrieve. You can put your hand down into that pocket, but you can't get all the way down. So yeah, so it could have been devastating if I was in a remote area. I would have been screwed, totally screwed. Alright, now the other issue that I mentioned in part 1 of this video was the clunky noise, which I think was coming from the drive line. Now this clunky noise or backlash was mainly when I went around the corner and I reapplied the throttle. You'd hear a clunk, or when there was no load on the motor and you're just doing like 2,000 or 3,000 revs, you did just hear clunky noise. But that clunkiness disappeared after about 900 kilometres, and so I've been happy with it now. It's basically gone. Occasionally I might hear it, but I'd class as gone. The another issue that I had with the bike was a stuttery sensation between 2,000 and 1,000 revs, again when there was no load on the motor. Now I don't know if that's related to the backlash, I'm not really sure, but it is still present on the bike, but it is, I would say, 80% gone. So the running period has fixed a few issues with the bike. Now there was also a lot of vibrations from the motor over 7,000 revs. Now obviously that will get better as the motor does more mileage, but a lot of that vibration is gone, but there is still some vibration which comes through the petrol tank, and it's only during the acceleration. Once you set your speed, there are no vibrations really anywhere on the bike to complain about. Alright, so let's we'll just get to the motor, this GSX motor. Now I checked out a few dyno results on this motor, and apparently comparing it to the 2005 GSX, there's not a huge difference between the two bikes. The GSX puts out more power, mainly because it revs out another 1,000 or 2,000 more, so its extra power is way up the top. Now I've been reasonably happy with this bike, the motor, and it's not a huge amount of power, below 7,000 revs. In fact, you wouldn't know that this is a 150 horsepower motorbike, but the thing is with it is that it's a very tractable bike around town. You can just easily sit it at low speeds. It doesn't mind, it's happy to do it. But if you do want to give it a bit of stick, once you get it over 8,000 revs, the afterburners, if I could call it that, virtually kick in, and this bike really takes off. It's quite impressive. There's a lot of power and torque up at the high rev range. But for me, I'm quite happy just to ride around it keeping it under 6,000 revs, mainly because I get a lot of satisfaction from the sound of the motor. It has a very growling sort of sound, and just flicking through the gears, because it's such a sweet gearbox, it's really nice. I enjoy it, you know, it's a very enjoyable bike. So the motor, yeah, it's a good motor. I took it for a ride on the freeway the other day, and the overtaking power of this bike is very, very impressive. So there's no issues with overtaking. Sitting on highway speeds is quite comfortable, and the fuel economy of this bike is just amazing. Now, on the highway, yesterday I did 362 kilometres out of the tank. So I filled the bike up when it was on the side stand, so I didn't get maximum fuel into the tank, but I did 362 kilometres before I had to refill it, which is quite impressive. And I worked it out, got the calculator out, and it worked to be 67 miles to the gallon. That's what I got. Now, to get 67 miles to the gallon, I kept the bike between 4,000 and 5,000 revs. I mean, admittedly, I did give it a bit of a speed test, but once I got to 190 k's an hour, I thought, oh, that's too much speed for me. But yeah, that's very impressive fuel consumption from the bike. So yeah, so that's the motor. That's the Gixxer motor. It's got tons of grunt, but it's right up the top end of the bike, of the rev range, I meant to say. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Now, I've given this bike a rating. I've gone through all the main components and rated it all, and I've given this bike a rating of 92 out of 100. You know, I think it's an impressive bike, and I really can't see any bike in the marketplace that could actually match this bike, you know, for the money. You know, it just offers so much. It's not the perfect bike, but what bike is perfect? But anyway, I'll put up on screen of my breakdown of the actual the rating. I'll go through the tyres, the ergonomics, blah blah blah, and I'll put that up on the screen. Yeah, so overall, this bike is just one hell of a bike, and I recommend it to anyone that may be looking for a sports touring type of bike. This bike is a winner. Okay, enjoy your rides. Bye.